Okay, I think we are live on Facebook. Still
I
says
think
it's
we are
sitting up,
too.
but let's just assume we are. I love how I start off these every time with a little thing about, are we live? Are we not? Okay, we're live, and I can see
It
us.
says live on my screen,
Yeah,
so
and
I'm
I can see us.
assuming.
We're great. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to this week's Love Seat. Hey, Bernice. I'm Morna Haist, the founder of Revolutionary Woman Global and the host of this really amazing community, which is heading towards 500 members. Woo!
That's
So,
awesome.
isn't it awesome? If you know an amazing woman who should be hanging around with us, then please invite them into this space because I don't know, there's something a little bit special about having 500 women. Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing. Welcome, Bernice, to the Love Seat. I am so excited that you are here today. Okay, everyone, Bernice is literally one of my favorite humans on the planet. You are literally one of my favorite humans on the planet. Tell us where you're beaming in from, Bernice.
I am beaming in from beautiful Nova Scotia on Canada's east coast, and I am 15 minutes from the lovely ocean front. And yes, it is February, but the ocean is still beautiful in February. And I'm actually in a small town called Bridgewater.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it's weird that I actually know Bridgewater and my dog's starting to growl, which is funny, right on time. And I'm actually on the other coast of Canada, on the west coast. So it's interesting when the reason I know your area so well is because I did some retreats there, and I was in your area on and off for a week over a 2-year period. And when I flew from New Zealand to Vancouver, and then from Vancouver all the way over to you, it was pretty much the same distance going from New Zealand to Vancouver to get over to you, because that's how big Canada is.
People don't have any kind of concept of how big Canada is. It's funny. I worked in tourism for a long time, Morna, and Nova Scotia looks this big on the map. And I had a tour director say they were going to come and tour around Cape Breton. They were going to come from PEI, tour around Cape Breton and stay in Halifax that night. And I said, oh, great. Your people will see exit 28, 29, and 30, but nothing in between because you couldn't possibly have time to get off the bus. And he was like, what do you mean? It's only a little on the map. But from tip to tip, just driving without stopping, pee breaks, and all of the fun things that happen in Nova Scotia. It is a good 8-hour drive.
Okay, so that gives me some perspective in terms of the size of it compared to New Zealand. And actually, as we're continuing, and I'm going to say obviously a little bit about Bernice in a minute and how amazing you are as we segue into our conversation. But I can see a few folks joining us live. If you're joining us live, let us know that you're here, where you're tuning in from, and welcome Judith. Kia ora, Judith, tuning in from New Zealand. It's really awesome to see you. Tuning in before she heads off to work. And if you're watching the replay, also let us know that you're here and where you're tuning in from. And feel free to share with us as we go what comes up for you as you hear part of Bernice's journey and the incredible work that she's been up to. So I'm going to say a little bit about you, Bernice. The first thing I'm going to say is that Bernice is a master entrepreneur. You are. So let's just claim that you've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years, and I think you have many, many, many geniuses, which we'll talk about during our time together. One of them is really helping people figure out the pieces of their business model and be really innovative. In fact, I'd say you're probably one of the best that I know. Tell folks just a little bit about that before we talk about really what I want to share with everyone is just the unbelievably incredible project, the Intentional Connection and the Inner Widsom Project that you've been working on, where Bernice has interviewed how many women to date, Bernice?
Published, I have 167 women published. I have 35 that are in process of coming. So over 200 women I've interviewed around the world.
Yeah, wow, this is incredible. And we're going to share with everyone what Bernice has been doing with us, and also actually ask if you've got any amazing ideas about where this project could go as well. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, Bernice, and also how you discovered, I guess, this gift for being able to help people figure out the puzzle pieces.
Well, it's really kind of a fun story and adventure. I have a hospitality background, but my passion has always been in teaching. Since I was a little girl, I always thought I would be a teacher. Didn't play out in the cards when I was in university, but I ended up working in tourism and hospitality. And I used to say, I teach people how to have fun. I teach them how to enjoy our province, how to, make the best of their vacation. So I was teaching in a different way and not in the four walls of a classroom. And I think that is where things got sparked from the entrepreneurial side of things. And more than that, Morna, I call myself a community connector, and that's
Right.
where the inspiration is. I really love that connection piece. I love helping people figure out kind of their zone of genius and who else they need to talk to. And I see a web of people that other people don't see. And it took me a long time to realize that was my superpower. And I just thought everybody could see that, and they can't. And, the more I dig in, the more I go, oh,
Ooh.
you don't see these connections. And so, but that's what I did. And people would come to me. The first iteration of my business was called Just Ask Bernice, because that's what I heard all the time. People would just say, oh, just ask Bernice, she'll know. Just ask Bernice, she'll know. And then I decided if I was going to grow this, you might not actually get Bernice in the end. So I had to change the name, and I really built on that connection piece. Yeah.
So
people would ask me funny things.
You didn't develop like a 0800,
No.
or a 399. And now I'm just going to let my puppy out while you say more about that, because he's growling at the door. So
no worries. Well, Morna's away. I'll keep talking. But yeah, so people would ask me funny requests. And some of the requests they would ask me for, I had one new business, a community member I met at a networking group or a networking event pre-COVID, when we actually got to meet face to face. And he messaged me one day. He said, I am new to town. Valentine's Day is coming up and I need to take my wife on a date. Can you help me find a babysitter? I'm like, oh yeah, I can find you. He had 250 plus employees, but he couldn't ask them because he was the boss, right? So how do you find a babysitter when you're new in town? You would just ask Bernice. I had, organizations come to me looking to do proposals. And they would say, who could do this for us? Just ask Bernice. She'll know who can do it, or she can do it. And that's often what ended up happening. Was I did it because I wanted to, and I wanted to be part of these things. So that's how my business kind of flowed from tourism and the projects that I was working on there. I loved it. I loved every day of it. My hotel I had a phenomenal team that was recognized internationally. And then I decided that I wanted to change the world, and I went into work with seniors. The difference between hospitality and seniors is hospitality. When you do something for people, they are very appreciative. They're very thankful. They go away and they don't tell anybody else other than they had a fabulous experience. But when you work with seniors and they're in one building, they tell each other. And then all of a sudden, what you did special for somebody, everybody wants. I didn't survive in that business. I loved the seniors, but our healthcare system needs some help, and it wasn't the right space and place for me. So I took all of that energy and enthusiasm and I put it into entrepreneurs. And I've been working with entrepreneurs over the last 10 plus years, and it is my jam. I have found my happy place, and I really am excited. And ideas come to me like popcorn because I don't have to implement them. I can generate ideas for anybody else, and I can start connecting them with people very easily. And I always preface by saying, I don't have to implement this. So I'll come up with the wonkiest, funnest, craziest ideas. But then I'll also give you the people who can help you execute that.
So, okay. So I want to chime in here, because there's a couple of things that I want to reflect back on. And Tara's just saying she loves the term community connector. I do too. In fact, there's three things that I want to chime in on that are coming to me. A lot of my background as well has been in the community sector, in community spaces. And from a very, very early on, I always thought to myself, why don't we have people who get paid to be community connectors? This is such a vital job in any space, particularly in communities, but in any space, this person who is able to see the connections and see the links and just, you know, see that web. Firstly. Secondly, I want to pick up on something you said when you first started talking about your genius and how everyone was telling you this was your genius, but you know, you're like, really? How could something that's so natural to me? And I really want to underscore this because I see this and I hear it over and over again, that folks don't understand that the particular thing you have, your particular gem, there'll be other people with it, but firstly, it'll never be how you express it. And secondly, I think we can easily forget that what comes so easily for us doesn't come easily for other people, and what comes easily for them doesn't come easily for us. So, you know, to put our gifts out in that way. And then the final thing that I want to pick up on, which I love, is that one of the things that I really love about the kind of work you do, and also helping people get into that space of possibility, ideation, idea creation, is that often we block ourselves because we go to the, how do I make this work? And we stop the ideas from coming. You know, we're stopping the flow of creativity before it even gets there, right?
Yeah. We're already figuring out all the what ifs and why fors and hows, and then we go, ooh, too much. So we don't go.
Too much. And you know, I certainly have been in so many situations, particularly when I've been sort of guiding a community to step into a new possibility, or a different, or a group or an entrepreneur to step into a new possibility. If we're not able to kind of, I guess, have conversations around, well, if you were starting from scratch, or if you know, stepping into that, because I mean, I also believe that anything is possible, but we get in our own way. I'm talking a lot. What do you think about all of that?
I think it's awesome. I love the possibilities. They're endless, Morna. And what we really need to do, like you said, is get out of our own way. And what I see happen all too often is people go, yeah, but. I'm like, but what? Like, just try something, just try it and see, instead of like looking at all the roadblocks. And it's okay to identify what the challenges are, but don't let it stop you. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. We have different clientele, you know, where we have an opportunity to work with different people. So, you know, it's okay to check out what the competition is doing in BC and incorporate it and twist it and make it your own. And people are kind of hesitant to do that. And I'm like, you know what? There's like, the wheel is the wheel, but Michelin makes them, and so does BF Goodrich, right? But right? So why can't we take an idea and make it our own, make our own version of that idea and run with it? And I think people get stuck, right? And they're like, yeah, but it's been done. Well, it hasn't been done by you, and your way is going to be different than anybody else's way.
This is actually, I want to really name this because I find this block in so many women that I work with. The internal dialogue that goes something like, who am I to do this? It's all been done. Everything's done. Somebody else is already doing this, you know, blah, 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 blah. But it's really not true. The example that I always think of is just something really simple like hairdressers. You know, imagine if there was only one hairdresser in your town, and because all the other hairdressers had said, well, someone is already doing hairdressing, so there's no point me doing it because it's already taken care of by this person. Well, we'd all probably have the same haircut because we'd all be going to the same hairdresser, you know, and that hairdresser
would be worked to the bone, right? Her fingers would be nubby.
Yeah, and what innovation would that hairdresser be working on? Because there's no one else saying, you know.
Yeah, who inspires them?
Who inspires
right? They inspire
them?
Each other.
Yeah, we've got to remember that we're on a planet of what, nearly 8 billion people.
There's going to be some duplication, but it's going to be uniquely duplicated.
And also here's the thing, you know, New Zealand, just for context, New Zealand has, which is my home country, which some of you may be hearing as you hear this, my way of speaking. New Zealand per capita has the most charities on the planet, the most charitable organisations on the planet. Wow. And one of the reasons it does is because, well, for those of you who I was going to say for those of you who need a geography lesson, but New Zealand's at the edge of the world. It's really quite isolated at the edge of the planet, and there's a psychology in New Zealand around making things happen and around figuring things out and solving problems. And so in communities, there's that desire to solve problems within communities. So sometimes there's criticism around this because maybe you've got 3 different cat charities in the same neighborhood, but you can bet your bottom dollar that those 3 different cat charities are solving different problems. And, you know, and also it's I think especially in communities, this is our way of expressing ourselves, you know, of bringing our contribution into a community, and there's something for everyone to contribute.
Right.
So, which is a beautiful segue into talking about the Inner Widsom Project. Tell us about it. Tell us about your baby and where it all started, where it is now, and where it's going.
Where to begin? So this is a passion project, and I come up with these passion projects all the time, and they're things that make me feel good. They're not for, you know, when I start them, I have no idea where they're going, what they're going to come out like, or, you know, the impact that they're going to make. This one has changed my world in many, many ways. And Morna, you're just one example of the amazing things that have come out of this, because this is how we got connected, was somebody thought we should have a conversation, right?
Wow.
Helena. Yeah. So right. Kudos. And I met, you know what? She didn't ever do her interview yet.
Yeah, I'll send you a note.
But yeah, so, and it was just, I shared what I was doing. So this project, what is it? I decided in 2019, I didn't want International Women's Day to be one day. I thought it should be 365 days. And so my goal was to interview 365 women. And for the first 90 days, I interviewed, I edited, I produced. My 13-year-old son at the time, you know, I dragged him along and he helped me learn how to edit. I had never done an interview. I had never, you know, been a podcaster. I had never produced video. I had nothing, right? I was new to all of this, but I knew what I wanted to do. And so I thought, yeah, so I just started. And I look back at them now and go, whew, some of those are pretty rough.
Yeah, but, I can relate.
And when they started, I took out the snippets that I thought were important. The, you know, the points in somebody's conversation that made the hair stand on my arms. And that kind of made me go, but then I realized the 2 to 3 minutes didn't give the people enough context of who these people were. So now they're TED Talks.
Right.
It's the easiest way. And I edit myself out because it's not my story, it's theirs. But my natural curiosity for people has allowed the conversation to go just like this. And it flows. There's no script. There's no questions. I get, you know, people are going, I don't know what you're going to ask. I don't know what you're going to say. And it's like, it's okay. And I start every one of them with, tell me your name and where you're from and a little bit about you. And it's amazing. And I truly believe these lessons are for me first, and then I get to share them with the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So I have talked to, it started locally, you know, my friends and family, you know, and you get to know who your friends and family are when they'll say yes to all your crazy passion projects. And the others who go, not this time. No, draw the line. So I've interviewed friends and family. My daughter is in there. So my youngest is 14 and my oldest is 82, who just graduated with her PhD from PEI.
I thought you were talking about children. I'm like,
no,
82?
No, the 82.
Like, okay, she's not. Yeah.
She graduated, yeah. I have interviewed women in New Zealand. I've interviewed women in Australia. I've interviewed women all across Canada, the US, the UK, the United Arab, Dubai, you know, I would simply say at the end of the interview, if you know an awesome woman, help me connect with them. I don't need a story because it's really interesting. Mm-hmm. If I were to tell the story about you, I would say all of the amazing things you do in the Global Dojo and the work that you do. But when we have a conversation, you may have a different story of yourself that you want to share with me.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So I didn't ever ask for a backstory because typically that's not what we talked about. And very quickly, Morna, in the interview process, women opened up to me and shared intimate stories that changed my life, that rocked my world. Day number 8, I think it is, Dottie shared with me that she was an alcoholic for 23 years and that she had hit rock bottom. Her son committed suicide. And finally, she shared that she had been sexually assaulted by her dad. And she really didn't have the capacity or support system to know that anyone else out there had experienced the same. And it rocked my world because I don't know that. I didn't live that experience. And she's just one of these powerful stories. I've talked to women who say they have nothing to tell, right? But yet they share a beautiful story of their life. I have talked to women who want to talk about their business. And this is what they do and they're super proud of it. I have talked to women who have suffered from grief and loss. I have talked to women who have risen above and man, they're champions and they're shouting from the rooftops and they're okay, right? And they're like, come with me. I've talked to women, you know, and honest, I walk away with a lesson from every one of them. And I own that lesson. And typically I can find it as we're going through the conversation and go, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. But the ripple effects are what has rocked my world, Morna, things that I didn't expect. And I just produced these and I started putting them out there. They were on my Facebook page. They were on my previous business site, they're on YouTube, and I didn't really have a plan, right? There's nobody financing this. It's just a passion project. It just feeds my soul. And I got a message probably around day 5 or 6 from a girl who said, our daughters knew each other, who said, really needed that today, thanks. And the messages continued. And every time she'd write me, I'd say, we should do coffee. We should do coffee. We should do coffee. And one day she called me and said, do you have time for a chat? And I said, absolutely. Because I got the feeling in the messages that there was something more that she needed out of these. We talked for 2 hours and she confided in me that her and her husband had separated and it was ugly. And she was alone and she was afraid. And these videos carried her through, listening to other people's stories. I don't know the ripple effects of this project. I don't know whose lives they've touched, but I know that I'm compelled to keep going. Yes, it's taken a little hiatus, but it's in my heart and in my soul. My goal is still 365. I beat myself up horrifically when I missed a day. And then I went, oh, silly. It's your project. You get to make the rules.
Yeah.
If
so
you need a break, take a break.
let's
I did.
Yeah, let's jump in there because I firstly, you know, Tara's writing some comments here about how this feeds our souls and how amazing you are, and yes, you certainly are. And you know, I think that there's so many beautiful lessons here. Firstly, I think one thing we're craving as a species, and particularly women, and we may not even know that we're craving this, is to be seen, to be witnessed, just to be witnessed, and to know that we're not alone, to share our experiences as women, to own our stories, and to get to choose whichever version of our story we want to share. I was really blown away when I was at the, I forget what it's called, but it's the biggest gathering for women on the planet. And the founder of the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke, was speaking. And she was talking about stories because obviously Me Too was a movement founded on women sharing their, you know, their challenging stories, their difficult stories of surviving abuse, sexual assault, and everything that's come along with Me Too. And when Tarana spoke, she said that that we need to own our stories, that it's our choice whether we share them or not, that it's not required, because she had been getting some I want to use the word blowback from women saying, is it my job now to share my devastating story to help others? And she said, you share what you want to share when you want to share it. And, provided that platform and release. And when I see the beautiful work that you've done and just your general approach, you're one of the most open, zero judgment. I think the reason why people have opened up to you is because you create that container. You are that container of creating space for somebody to express. And I also love the fact that, sometimes when we start these things, there's that, okay, it has to look like this, it's going to be this, and that you've created space for this to morph and move. I mean, you and I were talking last year about, I was going to be helping you put on the big event and do an event in person. And then, we all know what happened last year. With COVID, things changed. And I also think that we really, I want to say this out loud because I want everyone to receive the lesson here, that it's okay to put things down for a while. It's okay to give things space to see what's waiting to emerge. And then when it does emerge, it's emerging into different, potentially more richer soil. And so I'm curious, because we've got about 4 minutes left just to orient us into the time. Where do you think, what's next for this project, and how can this community help you?
You know what, I need to, I want to, I don't need to, I want to get back into the interviews. I've found somebody who will do the editing, which is the bane of my existence. I'm not a good editor, but I found a fabulous editor, more than my 13-year-old
Me neither, that's why I do everything live, but anyway.
More than my 13-year-old son, so I've taken the responsibility off his plate. But I'd love to know, who do you want to hear from? In my experience, it's everyday women, right? Doing the thing, whatever the thing is. So like I said, I never know where the conversation is going to go. I never know, I love being passed around the world. And that's what I feel like is I got to be passed around the world. And I don't do homework. I interviewed one lady and I was such a fangirl. I looked at her website and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to interview her and she's amazing. So yeah, so I'm not going to do homework on you. I'm just going to show up and be me, and have a conversation with you. So I would love to do that. And what is the place for it? What do you need to hear? I call it inner wisdom, because that's really what bubbles to the surface, is someone's inner wisdom. So how do we get the message out that there is inner wisdom out there that we can learn from each other and have conversations with women?
Oh, yes, and yes. So I've just written in the chat, who would you like to hear from? Who would you like to connect Bernice to? Get into friend Bernice, and reach out to her. Who would you like her to speak to? Maybe it's you. And what's going through my mind is, what I love about your project too is that it's not necessarily the usual suspects. Right, it's pretty ordinary people with extraordinary stories. We all have an extraordinary story that feels ordinary to us.
So Morna, my philosophy is everyone has a story worth telling, right? And we don't always see that in our own selves, is that our story is worth telling. But when somebody is engaged and curious, and all I do is lean in. I lean in and ask questions on what you share with me, and I'll pull out a little bit more. And it's been interesting because I've had interviews where we've danced around a subject. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ask, what is this? How do I dig in? And people will, and they're given the permission to pass. And I record for that reason. And I edit out, I had a girl who shared a story and she called me the next day. She's like, I haven't shared that publicly. Can you can you pull that back? And I'm like, yes, absolutely I can. Right. But we got in such a great conversation that a few details come out that that she wasn't comfortable with everybody knowing just yet, or maybe ever. So I can easily edit that out, which means, you know, you have the freedom to have a conversation and then go to me, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Not like we're doing now live, but
yeah, sorry about that.
wait a minute
Yeah.
is important when you're divulging some of that heart stuff. Wait a minute is okay. So, but yeah, we just lean in, and I use Zoom, right? Everything's been like, there's no fancy recording equipment. This is as low budget as they come, but it's filled with heart and soul and passion. And that's what's the maker for me, is when you're stuck on an idea, don't think about, I could have said, I never interviewed anybody. What are the right questions to ask? Or I could have said, I don't know the technology. How do I figure this out? I went to my teenager and said, help me. Right. And, you know, I had a conversation with my son, who's 24 now, and he's like, Mom, your YouTube channel is a mess. Do this, this, and this. And then my daughter says, Mom, you know, you're not very inclusive. It's looking a little white. And I'm like, well, I live in Nova Scotia, and that's predominantly who I'm surrounded with. She said, be intentional.
Intentional. Oh, okay.
Right.
Yes, and yes. And just as we're rounding up today, I want to reflect back on some of the gems that you just dropped here at the end, for everyone in the audience to hear. One is, if you've got a desire in you, that thing that just won't leave you, you know what it is. Just start. Just take the first step. Don't worry about figuring it out. Don't worry about it being fancy. Don't worry about all of these things, because, you know, honestly, my feeling these days is, firstly, we're craving connection more than ever. You know, we're craving real connection. And there are so many ways that we get rid of that connection by, firstly, making everything too fancy, too pro, too this, too that, has to look this way and not that way. And we're bringing our whatever this persona is to, you know, our preparation, now I'm not saying that you know, preparation isn't useful, but let's get real. Most of us have been preparing our whole lives. you know, there's not actually a lot of preparation to just start chatting. And there is something really intimate about what you're doing and the way you're doing it that I think cuts through some of the noise out there. So often we're comparing people's outsides to our insides. And I think you're giving people a glimpse into folks' insides, their inner wisdom, you know, their inner stories. Jane Beale is saying in the chat, I'd love you to interview me about my recent court experience. I was a major witness and I spent 10 hours on the stand. Jane, Bernice will be reaching out to you for sure.
My thoughts and prayers, because I can't imagine what that felt like. So first, you know, big hugs, and then I can't wait to hear the story of it all.
And here's another example too, like, you just never know when you connect with someone where that connection will go, you know, and you just have no idea.
It literally took me around the world, Morna, and look what I got out of it. Like, you're not the only one, no offense, but you're not the only one I have latched onto and hung onto and been so honored to now call my friends, right? I have made a worldwide connection that I'm super proud of and honored to be part of. These people are in my life for a reason.
Oh, I just love that. I love that. And the last thing I want to underscore for folks, because I've been also recently on this journey of wanting to be way more diverse in the women that I'm speaking to, working with, working for. And what I want to say to everyone watching is that does take intention. It takes intentional effort to reach out of your own bubble that you're in, to you know, to seek out new people to work with, different people to work with, people who don't look like you. It doesn't happen by accident, because we all kind of end up in these bubbles. And I think it's super important that we are always asking the question of, whose voice aren't we hearing from? Who are we not hearing from? And where are those folks? Who are we not hearing from, and where are those people? And yeah, that's amazing. Okay, Jane's just writing one last comment. We're going to share that, and then we'll move through to conclusion. Jane says she's got a passion for helping other people move through the court process. She's a speech pathologist.
Nice.
And I was able to express myself and stay in clear thinking. So the defense lawyer was unable to break me. Wow, Jane, what an experience. I'm super looking forward to when you chat with Bernice about this and hearing about it. Absolutely incredible.
I know.
Okay, B.
I don't know if we can keep it to 20 minutes. I'm going to need more.
I know, right? So in our last moments together, Bernice, what would you like to say to any women who are watching or watching the replay? What message would you have as we close out?
Courage comes from curiosity. So don't give up the curiosity that we have as children. It's natural. So courage comes from just playing in there and exploring.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Here's to playing more. Here's to being curious. Here's to having way more fun. Thank you so much, Bernice, for joining me in the love seat today. I love you so much. Thank you for sharing this message. And if you would like to be featured in the love seat, then reach out to the beautiful and amazing Tara Barnes in this community, and she'll get you onto the schedule. And I'll see everyone next week. Okay, bye everyone. I'm going to stop. Bye, B. I'm going to stop.